Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. You want to create work that lasts, but most creators chase trends, seek fast wins, and then wonder why their books, films, or businesses disappear in months. Ryan Holiday tells you why endurance comes from obsession with quality, not gimmicks. The world rewards those who master their craft and refuse to compromise, even when it means toiling in obscurity. A perennial seller, by definition, is something that doesn't just perform well at launch but continues to sell year after year, decade after decade. It is timeless, relevant beyond its time of creation, and beloved by those who discover it. Holiday breaks down why certain works become perennial while others fade, revealing the mindset and strategy you must adopt if you want your work to outlast the noise. You must stop thinking like a marketer first and start thinking like a craftsman. No amount of advertising will save an unworthy product, and no amount of initial success will guarantee long-term survival. If you want your work to endure, you must build it differently from the start. Launch it in a way that fosters longevity, and constantly tend to it long after its release. Lesson 1. Make the best work. Nothing sells forever unless it is great. Your first duty is to create something exceptional, something that cannot be ignored. Most people rush their projects, sacrificing depth for speed. They obsess over marketing before ensuring they have something worth marketing. Holiday calls this the curse of mediocrity. The world is filled with disposable books, films, businesses, and products, flashes of hype that fade into irrelevance because they lack substance. You cannot afford to be one of them. If you want your work to endure, you must build it differently from the start. It must be so good that people have no choice but to share it, reread it, recommend it, and return to it again and again. Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird is the ultimate example of a perennial seller. She spent years refining it, ensuring that every word mattered. The result? A book that has sold millions of copies for over 60 years and remains a cornerstone of American literature. Compare that to a forgettable bestseller from 5 years ago, buried under thousands of newer books. The difference? Depth, originality, and an uncompromising commitment to craft. The world does not need more noise. It needs signal. It needs creators willing to push beyond good enough and produce something that stands the test of time. Consider Stanley Kubrick's films. He was notoriously slow, obsessing over every shot, every line of dialogue, every element of his work. He didn't release films every year like other directors. He released only when he was sure they were masterpieces. 2001. A Space Odyssey was misunderstood at first, yet it endures decades later as one of the greatest films of all time. Meanwhile, dozens of sci-fi films that were considered hits in their release years have disappeared into obscurity. The same principle applies across every industry. Apple's first iPhone was not rushed to market. It was refined, improved, tested relentlessly, and when it finally launched, it changed the world. Rushing is the death of longevity. Think of fast fashion brands versus luxury designers. Fast fashion churns out trendy pieces that fall apart within months. Luxury brands like Hermès and Chanel craft each item with care, using the finest materials, ensuring durability and timeless appeal. The result? Fast fashion items end up in landfills, while a well-made Chanel bag increases in value over time. Quality sustains itself. It appreciates, while mediocrity depreciates. Even in literature, business, and art, the market is flooded with content created for speed rather than impact. The explosion of AI-generated books and quickly produced self-help guides is proof of this. They fill digital shelves, briefly spike in sales, then vanish, forgotten. In contrast, books like Atomic Habits by James Clear continued to sell year after year because they were crafted with clarity, depth, and enduring value. If you want to create a perennial seller, you must do what most people are unwilling to do: go slower, dig deeper, and make something truly excellent. Michelangelo took 4 years to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Da Vinci spent years perfecting the Last Supper. He famously said, "Art is never finished, only abandoned." What do you think would have happened if they had rushed? If they had decided to prioritize speed over precision, their work would not still be revered centuries later. The difference between work that lasts and work that disappears is the time and care invested in it. This applies to everything: writing, business, filmmaking, music. Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly was not written in a weekend. It was a meticulously crafted album that challenged conventions, infused with deep storytelling, history, and artistry. That's why it will be studied decades from now, while disposable radio hits fade from memory. The lesson is clear: if you want something to last, you cannot take shortcuts. You must treat your work with that same level of seriousness. If it takes longer, so be it. If it means rejecting shortcuts, you do it. The moment you start compromising, cutting corners, choosing speed over depth, chasing trends instead of creating something unique, you guarantee that your work will be temporary. There is no way around this. Great work is its own best advertisement. If you want your book, art, or business to last, you cannot settle for good enough. You must create with the intent of being undeniable, of making something that, years from now, still matters. That is the only path to building something that will stand the test of time. Lesson 2. Ignore the masses. Chasing mass appeal is the fastest way to create something disposable. Most creators assume that the broader their audience, the better their success will be. This is a mistake. Mass-market products, designed to be liked by everyone, are forgotten just as quickly as they are consumed. When you try to please the masses, you dilute your work to the lowest common denominator. The result is mediocrity, safe, generic, and replaceable. Instead, your goal must be to create something that deeply resonates with a specific audience, something so distinct that the right people feel it was made just for them. Hollywood provides endless examples of this mistake. Every year, studios pump out big-budget, mass-appeal films that dominate the box office for a weekend and then disappear from cultural memory. Compare these to The Big Lebowski, a film that flopped in theaters but became an enduring cult classic. Why? Because it wasn't made for everyone. It was made for a particular type of viewer. It was weird, quirky, and filled with oddball humor that some people didn't understand. But those who did became lifelong fans. The Coen brothers didn't compromise their vision for mainstream approval, and that's exactly why the film has stood the test of time. This lesson extends far beyond film. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power is another prime example. It is unapologetically ruthless, designed for people who crave a deep understanding of power dynamics. It doesn't try to soften its message to appeal to the masses. Many critics have called it amoral, even dangerous. But Greene understood that by fully committing to his vision, he would attract the right audience: leaders, strategists, entrepreneurs, people who don't just read books but study and apply them. That's why, decades after its release, it remains one of the most influential business books of all time, passed around in boardrooms, prisons, and military academies alike. Contrast this with the countless generic self-help books that flood the market each year. They're designed for everyone, filled with vague, feel-good platitudes that could apply to anyone but inspire no one. These books spike in sales for a few weeks, then vanish into obscurity because they lack a devoted audience. They are commodities, easily replaced by the next trend. If you want your work to endure, you must reject this approach. Look at Tesla. Elon Musk didn't set out to make a car for everyone. He built a car for tech enthusiasts, early adopters, and people who cared deeply about sustainable energy and innovation. Instead of watering down his vision for broad appeal, he leaned into it fully, creating something so unique that it developed a near-religious following. That loyalty propelled Tesla into the mainstream, but it started with a small, passionate base. The same principle applies to everything: music, art, literature, and business. You don't reach the masses by chasing them. You reach them by creating something so compelling for a niche group that they become your evangelists. In publishing, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings was not written for a mass audience. It was deeply rooted in mythology, linguistics, and fantasy lore. At the time, fantasy was not a mainstream genre. Critics dismissed the book as too dense, too complex. Yet Tolkien had written something irreplaceable for a specific type of reader. and those readers became fanatical about it. Today, it's one of the best-selling books of all time, precisely because it wasn't trying to be mainstream, it was trying to be great. The same principle applies to any creative work. Seth Godin calls this strategy the purple cow, the idea that in a field of ordinary brown cows, people will notice the one that is different. If you try to blend in, you disappear. If you try to be everything to everyone, you become nothing to anyone. Your work must be bold enough that some people love it intensely, even if it means others hate it. Trying to be universally liked is the fastest way to become forgettable. Define your audience. Know exactly who your work is for, and make it undeniable for them. If it means alienating others, good. That means you're doing it right. Cult followings don't form around safe, neutral, inoffensive work. They form around things that are different, things that dare to take a stand, things that speak so directly to a specific group that those people feel seen, understood, and compelled to spread the word. Your goal isn't to be liked by everyone, it's to be essential to someone. If you try to please the masses, you will impact no one. Lesson 3. Master the launch. Great work won't market itself. You've poured everything into creating something extraordinary. But if you release it carelessly, it will sink without a trace. The world is not waiting for your book, film, album, or business. People are overwhelmed with choices, bombarded by content, distracted by infinite alternatives. If you don't take control of your launch, your work will disappear into the void, no matter how brilliant it is. You must treat your launch with the same level of craftsmanship that you put into the work itself. James Cameron's Titanic wasn't just a great film. It was a masterclass in launching a product for maximum longevity. The film didn't have a traditional box office weekend success story. It was released strategically, building anticipation, starting with limited screenings, allowing critics and early audiences to create momentum before the full theatrical rollout. Cameron understood that longevity wasn't about opening weekend hype, it was about sustained engagement. As a result, Titanic didn't just perform well, it dominated the box office for months, becoming one of the highest-grossing films of all time. Compare this to countless Hollywood blockbusters that explode onto the scene and vanish within weeks, forgotten as soon as the next big release arrives. The same principle applies to books. When J.K. Rowling released Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, it wasn't an overnight success. It was built through careful release strategies, word of mouth, and strong advocacy from early readers and booksellers. Scholastic didn't just throw it into stores and hope for the best. They nurtured it, getting copies into the hands of librarians and teachers, generating excitement in a way that ensured people kept talking about it long after its release. Contrast that with the countless books dumped onto the market every year with no strategy, no build-up, no momentum. These books vanish, regardless of quality. Holiday emphasizes this truth. Launching is not a one-day event. It is a process. Rushing your launch is like throwing a masterpiece painting into an alleyway and hoping someone important stumbles across it. You must be deliberate. You must craft anticipation, control perception, and ensure the right people champion your work before it even reaches the public. This is what separates lasting success from fleeting attention. Consider Apple's product launches. Every iDot phone, every MacBook, every software update follows a carefully controlled rollout. The company doesn't just release a product and hope people notice. They build mystery, strategically leak information, hold press events, and allow tech influencers to review products early, ensuring that by the time the public gets access, demand is already at a fever pitch. This is why Apple products don't just launch, they dominate. Compare that to lesser-known tech companies that release innovative but poorly marketed devices. Their work might be excellent, but without a launch strategy, they are forgotten. Even the music industry follows this model. Beyoncé's self-titled album release in 2013 is a case study in mastering the modern launch. No prior announcements, no leaks, no endless promotional campaigns, just a perfectly timed drop that shattered expectations. But make no mistake, the success of that surprise launch wasn't accidental. It was a meticulously planned event, using fan psychology, digital strategy, and media influence to ensure it became a cultural moment. In contrast, how many albums, even from major artists, vanish within weeks because they were carelessly launched with no strategy? Your launch must be designed for endurance. A sloppy launch, no matter how good the product, is a wasted opportunity. Timing matters. Preparation matters. You must make sure your audience is primed, your champions are in place, and your work is presented in a way that maximizes its impact. Think about who your early supporters will be: journalists, influencers, industry experts, or superfans, and ensure they have access before the general public. You need them to talk about your work, share it, and spread the momentum. Never assume that because your work is great, people will just find it. They won't. You must create anticipation, build demand, and release strategically. Every successful book, film, or product that lasts beyond its launch window was carefully positioned for long-term relevance. You must do the same. Launching is not about making a splash. It's about ensuring your work stays afloat for the long haul. Lesson 4. Keep selling. Most creators make a fatal mistake: they abandon their work too soon. They treat the launch as the finish line instead of the starting point. They assume that because their book, film, or product exists, people will naturally find it. They won't. The world is drowning in content, and the moment you stop selling your work, it starts dying. The reason most books disappear from shelves within a year, most businesses fail within 5, and most albums never get remembered is simple: their creators stopped pushing. If you want your work to endure, you must keep selling it long after everyone else would have moved on. Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art is a case study in long-term selling, released in 2002. It wasn't an immediate blockbuster. There was no viral moment, no overnight success. But Pressfield never stopped talking about it. He kept writing essays, doing interviews, mentioning the book in conversations, and making sure it stayed in front of new audiences. 2 decades later, The War of Art still sells steadily, not because of some early marketing blitz, but because its author never let it fade. Contrast that with the thousands of books released every year that get a brief sales spike and then vanish into obscurity. The difference? Pressfield kept selling his work. This principle applies far beyond books. Take The Shawshank Redemption. It flopped at the box office in 1994, overshadowed by bigger movies. But director Frank Darabont and the film's fans didn't let it die. Through home video, cable TV, and constant reintroductions, the film slowly built an audience. Today, it is widely considered one of the greatest films of all time. The same story played out with Breaking Bad. Its early seasons had decent but unspectacular ratings, but AMC didn't give up. They kept pushing, promoting, and re-releasing. Word of mouth took over, and by the time the final season aired, it was a cultural phenomenon. Compare this to films and books that disappear within weeks because their creators treated marketing as a one-time event. If George Lucas had stopped pushing Star Wars after its initial release, it would have been just another sci-fi film in the late 70s. But he understood that a great product must be continually introduced to new audiences. Lucas nurtured it, expanded it, kept releasing new editions, and built one of the most powerful franchises in history. This relentless selling applies to businesses too. Look at Nike. The company didn't just launch the first Air Jordans and hope they'd sell forever. They kept selling the story. Every year, new versions, new campaigns, new narratives. They built a product, but more importantly, they sustained its momentum. Most people, however, launch once and hope the work sells itself. This is a delusion. If people don't know your book exists, they won't buy it. If they haven't been reminded of your movie, they won't watch it. If your album isn't continually reintroduced to new fans, it fades. You must always be finding new ways to put your work in front of fresh eyes. This doesn't mean spamming people. It means being strategic. Find new audiences. Adapt your message. Keep showing up. Seth Godin describes this as the difference between a one-time event and a long-term practice. The most successful authors, musicians, filmmakers, and entrepreneurs understand this. They don't just sell once, they sell forever. Never assume that because your work exists, people will find it. They won't, unless you keep putting it in front of them. A perennial seller is not just built on quality. It is sustained by effort. If you want your work to last, you must never stop selling it. Lesson 5. Build a loyal tribe. A perennial seller does not survive on hype. It lasts because a core group of true believers refuses to let it fade. Seth Godin calls this a tribe, a dedicated audience that spreads your work not because you paid them to, but because they believe in it. If you want your book, film, music, or business to endure, you must cultivate this kind of following. Word of mouth is the only marketing that truly sustains long-term success. No ad campaign, no bestseller list, no viral moment can replace the power of a loyal fan base. Look at Dune by Frank Herbert. It was not an instant bestseller. The book was dense, complex, and at first, overlooked. But a small group of dedicated readers connected deeply with it. They passed it down to friends, insisted others read it, and built a culture around it. Over time, this grassroots enthusiasm turned Dune into one of the best-selling and most influential sci-fi books of all time. The same thing happened with The Catcher in the Rye. Salinger's novel wasn't just bought, it was adopted. Readers identified with Holden Caulfield so intensely that they kept pushing the book into the hands of the next generation. That's how you build longevity. Contrast that with disposable bestsellers. Books that hit the top of the charts because of a massive marketing push but lack a true fan base vanish the moment the promotion stops. Remember all the business books that were must-reads 5 years ago? Most of them are forgotten because they didn't cultivate a core tribe of readers who cared enough to keep them alive. True fans, not general audiences, are what create lasting impact. The music industry is another example. Taylor Swift didn't become a global phenomenon just because of her talent. She cultivated an army of dedicated fans who feel personally connected to her. She nurtures them, speaks to them directly, and makes them feel like insiders. The result? Her fans don't just listen to her music. They fight for it, defend it, and evangelize it. Contrast that with one-hit wonders who dominate the charts for a season and disappear. Swift's longevity isn't about mainstream appeal. It's about deep loyalty from a core group of supporters. Elon Musk understands this principle too. Tesla doesn't spend billions on traditional advertising. Instead, it has a passionate tribe of believers who spread its message. Musk engages with his audience personally, keeping them invested in the company's vision. Tesla fans aren't just customers. They are evangelists. That is how you build something that lasts. You must do the same. Engage with your audience. Treat them like insiders. Respond to them. Reward them. Make them feel like they are part of something bigger than just a product or a book. This is how authors like Austin Kleon keep their work selling years after release. They don't just publish and disappear. They build relationships with their readers, send newsletters, share insights, and keep their audience connected. Never take your true fans for granted. One deeply loyal reader, listener, or customer is worth more than 100 passive ones. True fans buy multiple copies, recommend your work to others, and keep returning. They sustain you indefinitely. If you cultivate a small but passionate tribe, they will carry your work forward, ensuring that it outlasts the fleeting attention of the masses. Lesson 6. Play the long game. Perennial success is a marathon, not a sprint. Too many creators obsess over short-term wins, bestseller lists, opening weekend numbers, social media engagement within the first 24 hours. This is the wrong mindset. True. Lasting success is built over years, sometimes decades. If you measure yourself by immediate results, you will make reactionary choices, chasing trends instead of building something meaningful. Ryan Holiday emphasizes that real impact comes from playing the long game. The world rewards persistence, not impatience. Look at The Shawshank Redemption. It flopped at the box office, overshadowed by more marketable films. But over time, through rentals, TV broadcasts, and word of mouth, it became one of the most beloved films of all time. Why? Because it was built to last, not to dominate a single weekend. Contrast that with the countless action blockbusters designed to peak in their first week and then vanish. The difference is patience. If you want to create something that lasts, you must be willing to let it grow slowly, organically. J.K. Rowling spent years writing Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. She was rejected by publishers repeatedly. When it was finally released, it did not explode overnight. It grew through libraries, classroom readings, and personal recommendations. The success of Harry Potter wasn't a one-time event. It was a slow, deliberate build of word of mouth, re-readings, and dedicated fans. Compare that to the flood of fantasy books that were rushed to market after Harry Potter became a phenomenon. They sold well for a season and disappeared. Rowling built something that would endure because she wasn't chasing immediate returns. She was crafting something deeper. The long game applies everywhere. James Cameron didn't just make Avatar to be a hit for one weekend. He planned it as a multi-decade cinematic universe. Elon Musk didn't create Tesla to turn a profit in a year. He envisioned a company that would redefine transportation over a lifetime. When Amazon first started, Jeff Bezos didn't aim for quick profits. He reinvested everything into growth, willing to lose money for years to build something that could dominate indefinitely. The greatest businesses, books, films, and artistic works are all built with this same philosophy. Short-term thinkers burn out. They get frustrated when success doesn't come fast enough. They chase viral moments, cut corners, and sacrifice quality for quick wins. But look at the musicians, authors, and filmmakers whose work lasts. Bob Dylan didn't become a legend overnight. The Beatles didn't stop making music after their first hit. They kept creating, kept evolving, kept thinking about their careers in decades, not months. This lesson also applies to failure. If you think long-term, short-term failures don't matter. The best work is timeless. And if you aim for longevity, setbacks are just temporary obstacles. Walt Disney went bankrupt before creating the most successful entertainment empire in history. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple before returning to build it into the most valuable company in the world. If they had given up when things didn't go their way immediately, their legacies wouldn't exist. Stop worrying about instant success. Stop chasing numbers that mean nothing in the long run. Focus on making something so strong, so undeniable, that it will grow over time. Build something that people will still be talking about years from now. That is the difference between being a fad and being a classic. Play the long game, and time will do the marketing for you. Conclusion. Perennial sellers don't happen by accident. They are built with purpose, patience, and an unshakable commitment to quality. You must make something great. Resist the urge to chase trends. Launch it with strategy, and nurture it for years. The difference between a forgettable success and a lasting classic is in how you approach your work. If you want to create something that outlives you, you must think beyond the next year and focus on making something that will matter forever. Read Perennial Seller to understand these principles in full detail and apply them to your work. The end.